In ancient Athens, when the sun had just begun to brush against the marble columns of the Agora, thousands of people were already starting a new day of labor. Stonecutters struck their hammers with heavy, echoing blows. Sailors strained their bodies as they hauled sails under the salty wind blowing in from the sea. Scribes bent over parchment scrolls, their hands moving steadily along each line of text. Everyone was busy. Everyone was exhausted. And everyone believed that with enough hard work, life would eventually become abundant. But when dusk fell, reality revealed a bitter truth. Their money pouches were still light. Life remained tight and unforgiving. And tomorrow would begin once again with the same old worries, repeating like a wheel with no escape. They were not lazy. They were not useless. They worked from morning until night, earning drachmas that fairly matched the sweat they poured out. Yet strangely, money came and went as quickly as water slipping through open fingers. Food, clothing, offerings to the gods, small pleasures meant to ease exhaustion. Every expense had a reasonable excuse. And in the end, nothing remained. Meanwhile, along the very same road, wealthy merchants passed by in finely crafted cloaks, their steps unhurried, their eyes calm. They did not work harder. They were not blessed with divine intelligence, but they possessed something the majority did not: comfort and freedom. A question quietly formed in the minds of ordinary laborers. If everyone worked the same, why were their fates so different? From that question, the door to ancient laws of wealth slowly began to open. Nicandros lived in Athens, in a small room tucked behind the temple of Athena. Each morning, he walked along cold stone streets, carrying parchment scrolls and an ink box, toward the civic hall. His work was to copy laws, decrees, and records of the city-state. It was a task that demanded absolute precision. A single incorrect stroke could distort the will of the entire council. Nicandros worked carefully, patiently, and consistently completed his duties better than most. Yet when the day ended and oil lamps were lit, the truth appeared without mercy. In the leather pouch at his side were only a few loose drachmas. No land, no property, no savings for years of poor harvests or illness. Nicandros could not understand why a man who lived with discipline, worked diligently, and avoided extravagance was no better off than the day before. He observed the lives around him. Old friends, who had studied letters and grown up alongside him, now shared the same condition. Meanwhile, merchants at the port of Piraeus grew wealthier each year, even though many of them did not labor harder. One night, sitting alone, Nicandros realized something crucial. The problem did not lie in labor, but in how people treated money. If mathematics had laws, if nature followed order, then wealth must also obey its own rules. And if such rules existed, they could be learned. That thought quietly opened the path that would change Nicandros' fate. His destiny shifted on a day that seemed entirely ordinary. That day, Lycurion, the richest lender and merchant in Athens, entered the civic hall to request the copying of a complex set of laws concerning land ownership. Lycurion's reputation silenced the entire room. He was known for his immense wealth, cold demeanor, and unforgiving dealings. Nicandros accepted the task in exchange for a modest payment, enough to cover a few weeks of living. However, the laws were longer than expected. When Lycurion returned, The work was still unfinished. Anger was visible on the merchant's face. In that moment, Nicandros understood that he stood before two paths. One was to bow his head, apologize, and accept his familiar fate. The other demanded boldness. Nicandros raised his head, looked Lycurian straight in the eye, and said he was willing to work through the night to complete the task, if Lycurian would share the secret of building wealth. The room fell silent. Never before had a poor scribe spoken to Lycurian with such calm resolve. After a long pause, Lycurian smiled, not a mocking smile, but the smile of a man who had seen many years pass. He agreed. That night, Nicandros worked beneath a flickering oil lamp, his back aching, his eyes burning. When the sun rose, the completed manuscript lay before Lycurian, and with it, the door to the ancient laws of wealth was finally opened. As morning light filled the hall, Lycurian sat across from Nicandros and spoke slowly. He said that the path to wealth was not mysterious. It began with a very small decision, but one that required iron discipline. From the day he began to grow rich, he always kept a portion of every drachma he earned. Nicandros was stunned. He had expected complex formulas, but Lycurian only asked, "Do you keep any money for yourself?" When Nicandros spoke of his expenses, Lycurian nodded and said, "You have paid everyone except yourself." He taught the first law: always save at least 1/10 of your income. The second law followed: money must be sent out to work, but only entrusted to those who understand it. And finally, profits must be nurtured, not spent in haste. These words carved themselves deeply into Nicandros' mind, as strict and unyielding as the laws of nature. This story reminds us of an old truth that never fades. Poverty does not come from laziness, but from ignorance of the laws of money. Hard work is the foundation, but only knowledge and discipline can build a future. Money, like a seed, will only grow when planted in the right place, at the right time, and patiently cared for.